Now, as we had a look at how that kind of dysfunctional symbiosis happens, let's have a look how the delegation actually takes place, what the biggest number one mistake of delegation is, and what it actually leads to. So let's start with the idea of having a manager in the beginning. So let me draw a circle for the manager, and the manager is sitting at his desk. The manager has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 colleagues that he has as direct reports that he's delegating work to or that she's delegating work to. Now, the typical day of a manager is there's a task coming in, and then the manager says like, well, this task is interesting. I'll have a look at it later, and there's another task coming in, and that's interesting. Well, this part I can give to that colleague, and this part I give to that colleague, and there's another piece coming in. And well, this is interesting to give to that person, this to that person, this to that person, but those two need to collaborate on it to actually make it happen. Then we have another task coming in, and that task is best if we take that part to that person, that part to that person, and the bigger chunk here to that person, and basically I should also have a look at it. Also, we had that task, the first task here, right? Well, we hadn't delegated that. Now it's getting a little bit of urgent, right? So that employee has now 2 things to do, but let's give him that thing very urgent and let's make it a priority, and he can get help from that person and get help from that person in order to fix it, right? Now, there's another priority. I do that myself. That's one of the most important clients. We need to get it right. This is something that we really need to get going and really need to do. So I rather do it myself, as well as this task. I also take it for myself, right? And then we have another task here that we bring to that person and to that person and to that person, and they need to collaborate. Well, they are not so good with each other. That's why we need the other one. That one also doesn't have enough to do. They can also collaborate with that group here. And so what we're getting is a typical scenario where we are delegating things in and things out. And to many managers, what we're getting here is something that looks very, very familiar. We have a ton of communication and coordination strings with many important things landing at the point where the manager is. Like many strings going up here, and the manager has a lot on his and her agenda. And also one thing that's very critical is keeping track of who is doing what and who is responsible for what and when there's which kind of deliverable. Keeping track of that, this is a real challenge. And the big mistake that we see here is we see a delegation of tasks. Now, if we delegate tasks instead of responsibilities, as we will differentiate later, if we delegate tasks, we get singular, smaller units into the responsibility of somebody else. Now, let's imagine you have to host a meeting, and there are some guests coming, and you are just asking an intern or an assistant, can you please put some documents in the room? Can you please make sure that a beamer is up and running? And can you please make sure that we have a video camera there? Now, the intern goes ahead and goes into the room and goes like, well, we don't have a beamer. Coming back to you and say, boss, well, there's no beamer. What do we do? And you ask, hey, why is this? Why there should be a beamer? Yeah, no, they switched to televisions. And you go like, yeah, television is fine. Then you just send that person back to the room, and they're just going like, wait, this room has, you said you wanted a flip chart, right? There is no flip chart. And coming back to you and asking, hey, what do we do? There's no flip chart. And you go like, why is there a flip chart? Okay, well, what do we do? Do they have, can we get Post-its for the walls? Another communication, and you send them on the way again. So with that, we can think about many iterations where you send somebody out who has never gotten a real understanding of the goal or the responsibility behind it. So that person wasn't equipped to understand why you would want a beamer and couldn't assess whether a TV was maybe the better option compared to a projector. That one couldn't make an assessment which camera would be needed or not if they don't know what exactly you plan. Now, this is the typical scenario where we have a delegation of tasks. Now, we can do that quite differently. So let's have a look again. We have a manager and we have a desk. And now what we do is we have one package of tasks coming in here. And right away, before it's urgent, the manager thinks, well, who's the right person to get that responsibility? And that person here gets the responsibility for the whole package and the task, and a time and a date where you have a check-in that you put in your agenda. The next task is then delegated to that person, which can get this person and this person as a resource if they need it. And you delegate also checking in with you on a specific time, you put it in your agenda. You take the next part of the responsibility, you give it to that colleague with checking in with that one. And so what you're seeing here, with the same amount of things, we are getting to a point where we are getting very, very clear who has which responsibility on their agenda. Now we know that there's one person with that task, one person with another task, one person with another task. So we have that, and we have a follow-up planned in. Now what we do is here, we enlarge it. We don't go on a task basis, but we delegate the responsibility for reaching a goal. And what you see is we have a lot less interaction and communication nuggets. We have pre-planned check-ins that we can actually use in order to make sure that everything is up and running and that we're on a good way. We have a high clarity on who has what on their agenda in order to being able to fulfill it. Also, the employees know what is their key responsibility, what are they judged on in terms of, are you doing your job well or not? And also they know where they need to help each other. And typically that reduces the workload of a whole organization by 20+%. This is why I only drew 5 of those, instead of 6 of those. Because we get a very strong increase in efficiency if we delegate goals in order to make sure that things are running. What do we do with the extra time? Well, with the extra time, we give the employees the right support in order to reach the goals themselves. In that sense, delegation is one of the central levers of leadership. And it's actually not a situation or a tool where you delegate. It's actually a process of personnel development. Your goal is to delegate in a way that every employee with every delegation is growing and growing and growing with their competences, that you have segments where you teach them some things, that you develop the system, that you optimize the system in order for everything to run smoother and more effective. So this is how you turn from task delegation, which is the most severe and biggest mistake in delegation, into a delegation of responsibility, and take that as the route for developing your colleagues into becoming better and better and better at it. Specifically with a task where you now think, well, you need to do them yourself. It's very important to also delegate those in order for you to have more strategic realm and more development room for the employees, instead of operative work that you might be drowning in. But what do you need to do in order to make sure that you don't delegate too much to the employee? And that is the question of the levers of delegation, and that's what we look into in the next session.